In this video blog, I want to wrestle with the question, what is leadership? More specifically, we will deal with the topic of Christian leadership. I did a search on Amazon for leadership books, and the search showed nearly 89,000 results. Obviously, the question of what leadership is not a new question and has been defined, examined, detailed, and finally elaborated upon in thousands of books and articles. Yet before you or I embark on a journey of finding our strengths and applying them in leadership roles, this question must be answered. What is leadership? James McGregor Burns wrote that leadership is one of the most observed and least understood phenomena on earth. We see leadership in play all around us all the time, yet defining it is not easy. Scott Adams, the creator of the Dilbert comic strip, has comically noted that leadership is an intangible quality with no clear definition. That's probably a good thing, because if the people being led knew the definition, they would hunt down their leaders and kill them. Although Adams was trying to be comical, he did land on a very tense thought when he wrote that leadership is an intangible quality with no clear definition. Now, I don't believe he's completely accurate here. Yes, leadership is intangible, but I do think there are many clear definitions of leadership. One clear definition comes from Peter G. Northouse, professor of communication in the School of Communication at Western Michigan University. He's author of several best-selling collegiate-level leadership texts and considered by many to be an expert in the field of leadership. He's given us a very basic, yet very clear definition of leadership. His definition: leadership is a process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. Let me say that again. Leadership is a process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. Now, this is a very clear definition of leadership. In fact, whatever person comes to your mind first when you think about a leader would almost definitely fit this definition. Your boss, the president, a historical figure such as Winston Churchill, they would all fit the bill. They're all individuals whom, through one process or another, have influenced a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. Even history's darkest years have had leaders who fall into this definition. Hitler and Mussolini, they too fall into the arena of leadership. In fact, because they were so convincing, some might even say that they were great at the art of leadership. That is to say, they were able to influence huge numbers of individuals to achieve a common goal. But now you see where this definition of leadership loses ground. The definition of leadership I just gave is a morally neutral definition. It has no foundation in anything morally or ethically absolute. As Christian leaders, then, it is not sufficient enough to say that leadership is just a process whereby we influence a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. We want to go even further in our definition of leadership, so as to be sure that the common goal is a morally good goal, a goal grounded in something absolute. And this is where the Bible comes into play. Just as we read through the pages of Scripture convinced of their authority and infallibility, so too we can define leadership with such holy conviction. In the Gospel of Mark, we're given this beautiful portrait of what leadership is. Mark in chapter 10 shows us how the disciples were competing for first place. They're trying to outmatch and outmaneuver each other for power, and what they understood leadership to be. After being asked by James and John to have positions of power and authority next to Jesus in his kingdom, Jesus totally flips their concept of what a leader is. The story picks up in Mark chapter 10, verses 42 to 45. And Jesus called them to him and said to them, "You know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." The disciples have displayed a delight in power, glorious achievements, and personal ambition. They even thought their Messiah would be beyond suffering and death, and would grant them all of their heart's desires. But this is not so. Jesus said, "Whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be slave of all." This is where the popular term servant leadership has come from. Jesus did not come to the earth to be served, but to serve others, to give his life as a ransom. What a radical concept of leadership. You want to be a great leader? Jesus tells you to become a servant. You want to be first? Jesus tells you to be a slave to all. No matter your position of leadership in your vocational or church ministry setting, remember that Jesus modeled the greatest leadership by becoming a servant. The infinite creator of this marvelous universe allowed himself to suffer an agonizing death in order to show how much he loved you and I, and in doing so modeled how we should lead. Servant leadership is not one of the many styles of leadership available to choose from. Servant leadership is a radical choice to live according to a kingdom ethic. As Dennis Hatfield wrote, servant leadership says, "It's not about me, it's about them. But not them on their terms, it's about them on God's terms." So may you lead in your vocation and your church as Christ led, a willing servant called to live radically countercultural, to serve the Father and meet the needs of those around you. This is true leadership.